Welcome to Father and Son on this Tuesday morning, and welcome to you, Tom.
Morning, Judd.
Well, I suppose the big news of the day and in the press today is the death of Osama bin Laden. He was free for 10 years, quite amazing when you think about it, after the terrible thing they did to the Twin Towers in New York. But they finally got him. I think they were very smart. I heard on the news this morning that Obama, one option was just to blow the whole place up. They might never have found his body. Instead of that, they risked some of their best troops to go in the choppers, and they shot him dead. And one of his wives.
Well, yes, several amazing stories have emerged over this. Firstly, the death of one of his wives. Apparently he was using her as a human shield, which is both the former Prime Minister John Howard and the US President have pointed out, says something about the sort of man he was. And also what was interesting, within 24 hours they'd dumped his body in the North Arabian Sea, because Islamic practice is to do that, or to at least bury the body usually within a day.
In 24 hours.
Now it's a smart move, because by having it at sea there's no sort of permanent burial site. But of course the big thing is, he was living in an upmarket enclave, not in Afghanistan, but in Pakistan. In an area where many senior military officers live, and questions are going to be asked how much the Pakistanis knew about this, and therefore
you can see what's happened. Obama didn't even tell the Pakistanis he was going in.
No, well, because
he reckons they would have got.
They would have sent him off. The big question is, I want to ask you one thing now. Let's say 10 years ago, when it was late 2001, when post the World Trade Center bombing, or the airline crashing into it, that the US invaded Afghanistan to try and get there's a Freudian slip, Osama bin Laden. Let's say they got Osama back in late 2001 in Afghanistan. Would we have pulled out? I think we would have. Now we've got him. Do we stay in Afghanistan?
Well, I think history says the Russians couldn't succeed there. 50 years before then, the British couldn't succeed there. We don't look as though we're going to succeed there. And the only issue now is, do you let the Taliban go in and take it over, and the whole jihad thing will build, and that'll be the home of it? That's the worry.
Well, maybe not. Here's the thing, that the Taliban and Al-Qaeda 10 years ago were already splitting apart, because the Taliban, to be honest, isn't into jihad overseas. It's just a local political movement that wants to dominate Afghanistan and have a very religious and conservative society there. But to be honest, so what? If that's all they want to do, I mean, it's horrible for the Afghanis, but it would be their problem. The big issue is Al-Qaeda, and Al-Qaeda was the international terrorist group, and it's based in all sorts of places, no longer in Afghanistan, many people say. In fact, the fact that bin Laden was in Pakistan tells you probably where it is based. Yes. So I just wonder, like, if I was an Australian soldier or a US soldier, I would honestly begin to question what we are fighting for in Afghanistan now.
Well, what they're fighting for is hopefully that Afghanistan can remain a democracy. That is what they're fighting for, and they're keen to hand it over. My guess is once it's handed over, the warlords will get in charge of the whole place.
Well, think of this. Let's say you look at the world and say, righto, there's all these different countries, and some of them could potentially become democratic and some can't. Well, Afghanistan would not be near the top of the list of the ones you would pick, that were likely sort of targets for democracy, is it?
No.
Anyway.
Well, time will tell, but I think there was a great feeling of satisfaction in the United States, and they did it very well. Not one of their people were killed.
And they had a chopper that got smashed and crashed.
Stalled. Yeah. So they landed on that.
And then set fire to it.
Yeah.
Now, what about more positive things? The royal wedding occurred on Friday evening our time, Friday morning UK time. It was a huge success. It went off without a hitch. There were so many good things. I was forced to watch it in between the Carlton versus Sydney game.
I did exactly the same.
I must admit, I thoroughly enjoyed what they call the Battle of Britain flight. They have a restored Lancaster, a Spitfire and a Hurricane, and they just roared over it. And, it's got nothing to do with the royal family or the royal wedding, but the Brits do that very well.
They do. They're brilliant. No, it was there was over 2 billion people watched it. It was just amazing. I just watched the footy, and Judd was just outstanding in terrible conditions up in Sydney. He was just brilliant. But a lot of people, and I missed this bit because the footy was on, when they were taking the carriages back from Westminster Abbey back to Buckingham Palace, they had all these beautiful black horses. People said it was just fantastic. I didn't see that. So.
One slightly odd note, I remember when all the members, the sort of minor members of the royal family were being trucked from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Abbey. They had them in these vans, and I looked, the vans were all Volkswagens, which of course maybe because the British car industry doesn't make anything like that anymore, but secondly because of course the royal family is all descended from the German royal family, so
yeah.
they picked German cars, but then of course they had Lancaster bomber and things flying overhead, so some interesting moments. But look,
anyway, he married a commoner.
Yes.
And the last commoner that got married to royalty was of course the old Queen Mother who married George VI. So I think it'll inject, a lot of people complain there's too much inbreeding in the royal family.
Yes.
I think the Queen Mother helped quite a lot, and this girl will as well. They seem both very smart people. They've been living with each other.
Well, this is the thing,
their
their relationship in many ways is a very conventional one. I mean, they're going to live in a normal house, relatively normal, in Wales. He's going to continue his career in the military. They've been living together, they've known each other since university, and all that is positive, because unlike Charles and Diana, I mean,
yes.
Diana was, barely out of her teenage years when she got married, just thrown into it, no real love for each other, whereas with Kate and William it seems to be very different. So we'll see, but I've got to say is that you and I are both monarchists, not Republicans. You'd have to say as a Republican looking at that wedding, you think, God, what's happened? I mean, where are all the Republican supporters?
Well, they're all disappearing because the latest poll shows they're down to 41%, and they're up over 50% when that referendum was done 10 years ago.
Well, maybe they're like my mother and your first wife, who maintains that she is a Republican, but forced me to tape the whole thing because she was away, so she can watch it at a later date.
That's right. They're all hopeless.
Now, look, in my market report, to change tack again, the Reserve Bank is meeting today. I think rates will stay on hold, no change. But gee, I tell you what, things are pretty dicey financially at the moment. I think there's all this talk of house prices really coming off in a big way around Australia. The official figures say 2-3%, but I've spoken to estate agents who say that houses are 10 and in some cases 15% below their peak.
We don't need to know that. We've got to sell my mother's house shortly.
Well, maybe you should get on with it quickly. But I never know who to believe. I mean, you've got the official stats. You've got real estate agents who are trained who couldn't sort of
Melbourne's withstanding a fall better than most.
Yes,
so I'm told. The footy rights, you discussed this a bit in your market report. I mean, it was a staggering 1.25 billion. The players will want to get a big chunk of it, but it's a great effort by the AFL.
Yeah, it is. They've got $1.25 billion. That's split between Channel 7 for free-to-air, Foxtel, of course, for the pay TV, and increasingly Telstra is a big part of it because the online rights, I think, are going to become very, very important over the next few years.
Telstra, people watch it on their mobile phone.
Or they're already doing it, that's the thing. And as the NBN gets built, assuming it does get built, the ability to watch footy over the internet rather than on a TV screen is simply going to go through the roof. So yes, people are already watching football on their mobile phones. Seems a bit odd to someone of your generation and to my generation, but it is what younger people are doing. The AFL Players Association will want a chunk of that, and they'll probably get it.
Right, they deserve it.
Well, what about this though? You've still got plenty of clubs like North Melbourne and so forth that are just in dire straits financially. Should the money be used to prop them up more?
Well, they're already propping them up, letting them break even. There's the Melbourne Football Club, there's North Melbourne. Bulldogs look as though they're out of their difficulties now. But you've got two of them, and you've also got Port Adelaide, which is really struggling financially. So they've got to keep propping them up, but I wouldn't let them get too rich off the back of this. So there's a special fund there, and I think you can't have clubs falling over. But North have made fundamental errors. They should have gone to the Gold Coast. That's obvious now.
Oh, and the thing is,
they were slow to go to Tasmania. It's just.
And the thing is with North, when it comes right down to it, North supporters, wherever they are, don't go and watch their team play. I mean, that's a big thing.
Well, they don't have that many supporters.
Well, then,
when you're not winning, people don't go.
Well, that's right.
They won their first game against Brisbane last week.
They did.
The Blues are going well. Gee, Judd's game was just outstanding. I see Bob Skilton reckons he'll win his third Brownlow.
Yes, he says that Judd is absolutely the player of his generation, ahead above Ablett and so many of the other ones. He's picked him to win the Brownlow this year. Of course, that's many weeks off yet, the AFL season, as the NRL season's many weeks to go.
Well, he was 11-1 at the beginning of the season. He's now into Five's favourite.
I've heard 450.
450.
Anyway, that's all we've got time for this morning.
That's right. So we'll see you all next week.